This is New York Nightly News with Chuck Scarborough.
And now back to one of our top stories, tomorrow's Iowa caucuses. And what was once being called Newt Gingrich's to lose, now, baby, Rick Santorum's to win. Here to talk about the ever-changing Republican race and tomorrow's caucus is Jamie Chandler. He's a political scientist at Hunter College who focuses on American elections, public opinion, the presidency, Congress, etc., etc. Jamie, good to see you.
Pleasure.
First, broadly speaking, I've been listening to the reporting of our NBC colleagues. This lead has changed 7 times. 41,000, I guess, or 41%, I should say, going in saying, I'm still not sure. Broadly speaking about the caucuses, how much is this about the winner? How much about this is setting the table for what really happens next?
Yeah, it's really about setting the table for what happens next. It's not, the Iowa caucus isn't necessarily a good predictor of who's going to get the nomination. Very few people have actually won the caucus and gone on to get the nomination. But it gives the candidates an opportunity to really connect with the voters and then also get a lot of momentum on the media out of this race.
All right. Well, obviously it will mean different things to each candidate. I guess we start with Mitt Romney, considered to be the established party candidate, but obviously there's a lot of people uncomfortable with him in Iowa, correct?
Yeah, the thing with Iowa is that 75% of the Republican primary voters are evangelical Christians. Mm-hmm. And they haven't connected with Romney very much. And he also hasn't done a lot of campaigning there. He's only made 2 visits. So he was really focusing on New Hampshire. Santorum, on the other hand, has been living there for the past 8 months.
And apparently that's paying off in these last couple of days.
He's been visiting every county, and he's speaking the language that evangelical voters like.
What about Ron Paul?
Ron Paul is actually doing very well, and I think it's interesting the way this race is shaping up, because it could be a situation where we see kind of a fight for the ideological center of the Republican Party, either libertarian or social conservative, depending on who comes in second or first.
Okay, all right, good. Well, now for different candidates who at one time were at the top of the heap, Rick Perry. He loses, or what does he need to do to stay in, or what do you think?
I think Rick Perry's probably going to be in the race until South Carolina. He's his schedule came out today. He's bypassing the New Hampshire primary. He's focusing all his energy on South Carolina, but his fortunes are on decline. I think by next week or the week after, we'll have a consolidated field.
Michelle Bachmann, who spent a lot of time today, she's going to campaign right up until, I guess, early afternoon tomorrow. Talk about that.
I expect Michelle Bachmann to drop out of the race by after the results of the caucus tomorrow night. Her campaign organization has been heavily focused on Iowa and didn't really branch out to some of the other states.
All right. Earlier, Newt Gingrich said, look, no matter what I do, I win because I'm still standing. Is that true, more or less, or no?
Yeah, I think Gingrich has a good opportunity to kind of come from behind. He's polling fairly well in New Hampshire. He's polling in the lead in South Carolina, and he's doing fairly well in Florida. So he does have an opportunity to improve.
Okay, all right. And finally, let me just ask you, they expect turnout to be heavier than it was even in 2008. Weather will cooperate. There seemed to be interest from the straw poll over the summer. What does that tell you as you've done your research on the Iowa caucuses?
Well, typically about 120,000 voters turn out, so probably see an increase of maybe 25 to 30,000. It has a lot to do with enthusiasm, and many of the voters for Ron Paul are very enthusiastic, and many of Rick Santorum's voters are enthusiastic. So it's a big year. I mean, Republican voters want to see a change in the White House.
Any thoughts of what's going to happen?
In terms of who's going to win?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm calling the race for Ron Paul, but by a very thin margin. I think the whole interesting dynamic will be who gets second place. And Mitt Romney really needs to come in at 25%, which is what he had in the last caucus. So if he does less than that, he's going to be in some...
He's got some issues. All right. Jamie Chandler from Hunter College, thank you.
Thank you.